seen a lot of years. Looks kind of like a lifetime, doesn't it? But hasn't she held up well? Yes, you look wonderful for your age, dear, wonderful. Creaks a little when I open and close the door, but you've weathered beautifully, dear. Beautifully. Besides, with a mailbox, it's undeniably true that it is what is inside that counts. This rust, the fault of the rain, the sleet, the snow, the hail, through it all, she continues to wait for the mail. These dents, Michael, I was upset this summer. I pulled a nervy. I needed to be in Vermont in 3 hours. I had nobody that I could find in person. I called several friends. I got their answering machines. I left many bizarre messages. I needed to just dump this personal turmoil on someone, do something that made a difference. I didn't want to harm my cats. I didn't want to kick my van. That would have made a difference, but I would have felt real stupid about it the whole trip to Vermont. I didn't want to punch a wall. It would only hurt my fist. I saw my mailbox. Waiting. Like always. Defenseless. Like always. Though I never really thought of her that way before. I went up to her and, that's for all the unsolicited ads addressed to resident and occupant. That's for all the personal letters that never came. I held my fist. All right, I'm gonna let you live. I'm gonna let you live because of the potential of the mail that may yet arrive. My hope chest. My mother hopes, she hopes, she hopes, she hopes, she hopes. And make believe it came from you. What does one say about oneself? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Good teeth. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Sense of humor. Ba-dum-bum-bum-bum. Tired of the bar scene. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. SF, looking for SM. Would be misinterpreted. Single man comes through Portsmouth every week or two. Would like to meet attractive women 40 plus. Not yet. For dinner and conversation. Yep. 28 engineer, teacher, like dancing, sailing, prospecting, seeing, cooking, the outdoors, arts, film, folk, new wave, classical music, looking for women 25 to 35. I could pass. Long-term relationship. Must be down to earth with a social conscience and good sense of humor. Friends and lovers. Young woman, 26, searching for a very close, tender relationship with another woman. A chance for long-term friendship and romance. No more loneliness. Alternatives. My common sense wants me to answer one of these personal ads, or make one up for myself. In fact, my common sense suggested recently that I post a list of self-improvements to my refrigerator door. Yes, speaking as your common sense, there's two things I can assure you of. The first is the potential for change, and the second, there is always room for improvement. Now, if I were you, and speaking as your common sense, I certainly am a very significant part of you, I would refer to that list every day to see if there was something that I could cross off which I had already accomplished, or put a check mark beside to work toward on that particular day. For instance, attending an early morning aerobic class. Or losing a couple of pounds. Don't forget, to answer one of those personal ads. Now, my life might improve if my common sense had more influence in it. Unfortunately, for the most part, my body refuses to cooperate. Common sense. May I interject an opinion here? Early morning aerobics? Diets? Personal ad? Go ahead. Just don't expect me to get excited when I meet him. For goodness sakes, Bobby, you never get excited when you meet anybody.
Oh, yes, she does. And we help her out, because we're the emotions. We remember when the body got excited about somebody. Now, this wasn't anybody. No, this was somebody. But it wasn't the only body got excited about. No, the body has been excited about other bodies before.
Suppress it, emos! Body, you know the drastic consequences of your continued emotional suppression. I know the consequences if I do not continue to suppress emotions. You always blow my cool. You screw things up. Body, emotions has just as much right to expression as you do. Common sense. It has been 4½ months. That translates into 139 empty days. 3,336 insignificant hours, none of which has been particularly worthy of my full attention. 4½ months of ziploc nothing, no bananas. Not one iota of yazoo.
That's it, buddy. You can use us in the presentation of your argument. We're glad to help you out.
Can it, emos? Bonnie, I was just about to speak to you about that very topic that you brought up. Good. Talk. Well, you know that man who took us out to dinner once and then he bought us nachos on 3 separate occasions. You know how much you like nachos. Yeah. So, he took us to the movies twice and then bought us tickets for that play in Boston. You enjoyed the play, didn't you? I sat through it. He and I enjoyed his company very much. We share many of the same goals. We have a lot in common. And I think that in order for this relationship to develop further and reach fruition, that frankly it is time that you now Body, I just think that it's about time. What is this sense? This conversation's about time. Time for what?
We know. We'll help you out. It's time for love. Oh, and other problems.
Frankly, emotions, this doesn't concern you just yet. Body, I just am not the one that usually brings this sort of thing up. I think, though, that it is time that you took him to bed. Am I to understand that you just told me that it's time that I took him to bed? Yes. Common sense. I'm ashamed of you. Stay in your cerebral arena where you belong and keep yourself to yourself. I make those kind of decisions. Body, what is the problem? He's a nice man. He's available. So, it's the details, Sense. I'm a stickler for details. How can you stand it when he rests his chin on his hands and has his elbows on the table and staring intently into my eyes as if he's listening to every single word you're saying. Well, I don't find that particularly objectionable, but you know he's not listening, Sense. He's just waiting for his chance to talk. And you know when that's going to come, because he always precedes speech by adjusting his glasses on the bridge of his nose. Once you see him make this motion, if you do not allow him to say what he intends to say, then his leg starts jumping up and down. How can you stand those things, Sense? I can overlook them. Can you overlook the penny loafers? Yes, I can. Can you overlook the fact that he wears highway tokens wedged inside them? Yes, I can. Sense. I know. Scout's motto, be prepared, but that is beyond conservative.
Oh, boy. An argument. Face it, you two. You can't get along without us.
Common sense. You can have all the conversations you want with old Token Foot. Just don't bring him into my bedroom and expect me to be polite company. Oh, for goodness sakes, Spotty. I only want a nice, comfortable relationship. And whatever I come up with, you reject. Sense. You have no taste. I do so. I have sensible taste. And therein lies the rub of Sense. What you consider nice, comfortable, and sensible is not what I consider exciting. And your nice, comfortable, sensible relationship stuff is going to get nowhere unless I want it first. And I don't want it, so forget it! All right, boy. You tell me. Exactly what do you want? Well, let's go out and I'll show you.
Oh, boy, we're going out. This will be fun. Okay, we'll go. No, we go to a bar. A bar? Oh, no. The bar scene always depresses me. Sense.
I want that one. What? We don't even know him. I know. I want to know him. Come on, Sense. Make your move. Move? I don't move. What move? You're the one with moves. What am I supposed to do? All right. I will lure him over here. Then you talk to him. Find out a few things. Find out if he's married or soon to be engaged. If he's not, I want him. Buddy, he's walking this way. See that, Sense? Oh, what will I say? Keep it light. Keep it simple. Do not pontificate as is your usual bent. Try saying yes for a change. Feel the shape of the word in my mouth. I want the motivation to come from you, Sense. Yes, yes. Say it, Sense, yes. No, I can't. You can, Sense, all right. We'll just start with a letter. O. It means nothing. Just a letter. Say it. Oh, fine. Now make it positive. Add a K. O, K. Good. We're on a roll. It's O for acknowledgement, OK for agreement, and yes. Come on, Sense. You can say it. O, OK, yes. You can do it, Sense. O, OK, yes. Try it, Sense. O, OK, yes. Good! Body and common sense are cooperating for a change. What? He wants us to dance. Well, oh, that's not enough information. Okay. I'll take over from here. at me. Can't you be a little bit more subtle? No, I can't. Common sense. I have endured your subtle approaches for 4½ months, which not coincidentally have been the same 139 days that I have endured total abstinence. The results are in. Tonight, I want results. I'm willing to sacrifice a little subtlety in order to get them. Buddy, he wants us to go home with him for a nightcap. Well, I'm ready. Oh, pick it up. Okay, bigger. Yes. Good going sense. We got him. We got him. Come on, emotions. We're going to celebrate. We got him? We got him. Oh, we got him. 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 We got the man tonight. Holy! Emotions. I'm surprised at you. Well, I'm certainly glad that both of you feel so exuberant about this. Frankly, I think it's a very impractical arrangement. Common sense, do not alter the mood. Oh, no, buddy. I wouldn't think of altering your mood.
Uh-oh. I'm sensing anxiety here. Me too. I feel very nervous. So do I.
No, no, you're with me. Come on. We're happy, remember?
Oh, no. No, there's too much new information to process here. I'm feeling overwhelmed. So am I. I want to go home. We want to go to bed.
So do I! And you're screwing it all up again. That's all right, emotions. Why, have you no sensitivity at all? Yes, I do. Located in very specific places. Common sense. Why do you always have to cater to the needs of baby emotions here? Why not cater to my needs once in a while? I mean, opportunity has practically knocked us all over, and you were literally slamming the door in his face. Your opportunity, but this opportunity is in the best interest of neither common sense nor emotion. We're saying goodnight to the man. Good night. We're saying goodnight to the man. Good night. Another night in the sack with common sense and emotional turmoil. And you think I'm going to get any sleep? No. One will be whining all night, while the other's trying to explain things. Does your sympathy lie with these two? Or can you understand the plight of the body? 4½ months. Ziploc, nothing new. Bananas. Not one iota of yazoo. Nothing but noises from these two. Go to sleep. Both of you. You can't allow me to get any action. But at least allow me to get a little rest. Lucille! How are we going to celebrate Christmas if you keep destroying the evidence, Lucille? The 5th Christmas card. I never Herman the hamster was indefinitely lost in the cellar. I was very used to not having pets all through childhood. When I became an adult, it seemed only natural that I would continue not to have a pet. I must have passed the pet store 100 times. I never looked in, not even at Easter time, to see those fuzzy buddies. Till there was one day, and something caught the corner of my eye. I turned around to look and, oh, there was this full-grown, furry, brown dog in a cage, labeled Lucille. She looked like a great big Benji behind bars. And she seemed to be looking directly at me, beckoning me over. So I walked over, and there I was, face to furry face, with the two most pleading eyes into which I have ever looked. Take me home with you, please. I'll be good. I'll be obedient. I'll be your very best friend. Please, take me home with you. No. I was not going to become suckered into being a pet owner out of sympathy. No, I still stood firm. Lucille stood firmer. Changed her tactics. Started looking all cute and happy. Oh, we could have such fun together. You could brush the fur balls out of my hair every day. Tell me, what's your name? Oh, we seemed to have an instant communication there. Without thinking of it, I just said out loud, Pat. The store manager gave me kind of strange. Not Lucille. She responded right off. Pat? Your name is Pat? Oh, Pat. You're named after my very favorite thing in the world, being patted. Oh, Pat. We're meant for each other. Take me home with you, please. Store manager sold her cheap. $5. That worried me. Not Lucille. She's taking me home! She's taking me home! A home of my own, I'll have my own yard, I'll have my own trees! She's taking me home! Just me and Pat! I'll have my own bowl! I'll share it with her! We'll be best friends! I never had a dog before. I didn't know exactly what to do with one. I figured, well, people play fetch with dogs, so I picked up a stick, waved it in front of Lucille's nose, and said, fetch! Fetch, girl! Fetch! Fetch! We're gonna play fetch! Oh, fetch! 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 What's fetch, Pat? Oh. You threw the stick away. I thought we were going to play fetch with that stick. Dad, don't yell at me. I know. I want to play fetch too. Yes. If you want to play fetch, go get the stick. Yes. like to go for a walk, Lucille? A walk? Oh, yes, oh, great neighborhood. Oh, look at all the trees. Come on, Pat, move this way. Pat, he's up on the leash, Pat. Oh, bunny rabbits. We'll have to remember this spot. Pat. I'm getting tired. Yeah, let's go home. We'll take a nap. Is that your house? Gee, it's kind of little. Probably have to build an addition so we can both live here. Come on, house. No, pal. No. No. Don't shake me to the dog. I came to live with you. So I unchained her from the doghouse. All right, Lucille. Come on, girl. My home is yours. Oh, great rocks. Where's the table? Right here. I'll stay right on the table, and I'll protect the house. Where do you sleep? Oh, nice, comfortable bed. What? Down. I know what that means. All right, I'll be under the bed, protecting the house. Someone's coming. Don't worry, I'll take care of this. They're coming up the porch. Their hand is on the doorknob. Turn the doorknob. What? Oh! Friend! Friend! Come on in, friend! Welcome to the home of Pat! And Lucille! Have a seat! Pat, sit down. Oh, that's real good. Don't stop, friend. Oh, we're going someplace. Pat! Don't push me on the head. I want to go too. Oh, Pat. No, don't go away to that complete stranger. Oh, if anything should happen, I could never forgive myself. I'd better be there with you. All right. Go ahead. Leave me alone. I'll protect the house. It will be here when you come back. She's gone. I've been abandoned. She's never coming back again. Go away and leave me, will she? I'll show her. Where's the garbage? And the raw flip-flops. And the pillows. And I'm gonna sleep in the bed tonight. Pat's back. I haven't been abandoned. She came back to... Oh, what have I done? Oh, I better hide. Under the bed. Lucille, come out from under the bed. for the dog. Lucille, don't grovel like that. Don't crawl on your belly. Lucille! You're not a bad dog. It's okay, Lucille. You're a good dog. Yes, Lucille, I really mean it. You are an exceptionally good dog. Thanks, Lucille. Well, here she is. Some of you thought I was making that story up. Now, because I couldn't, in good conscience, get rid of her. Oh, no, never, Lucille. I had to incorporate her into the act, and so, through many years of canine training, we have finally gotten to the point where we've learned poetry. And we have a poem here tonight that we'd like to share with you. It is about sharing, as a matter of fact, about sharing a chair and chewing a shoe. Ready, Lucille? Lucille? Well, perhaps the lights are throwing her off a little bit. Lucille! Sometimes I have a little trouble getting her attention. Lucille! Are you quite ready to begin? Oh. Elbow rest, turn around. Here we go. We share the chair, we chew the shoe. These are the... Lucille! Don't you remember? When I say chew the shoe, then you chew... Lucille? Chew the shoe, what? Lucille! For goodness sake, will you please chew the shoe? For goodness... Right here. Lucille, that's the wrong shoe. So's that. Lucille! Yes, this is the shoe that you should chew. Shoe! Now, do you remember? We share... We share the chair, we chew the shoe. Lucille, you growled at the shoe. What's the matter? Why are you growling at it? You're trying to tell me that this shoe doesn't smell good, Lucille. I'm well aware that you like stinky things. That should not prevent you from chewing it. Lucille! Come on now, we have to do this poem. These are adults. They don't have a whole lot of patience with stupid pet tricks. You're trying their patience. Lucille? Let's try it again. We share the chair. We chew the shoe. Chew it. Good. These are the things we like to do. Share the chair. Chew the... Lucille! You almost hit an audience member. Besides that, you threw the shoe. That's not what I said. Lucille, I'm having a little behavior problem here. Lucille, you're supposed to chew the shoe. Come on. Try it again. We share the chair. We chew the... Lucille? If you don't chew the shoe this next time, then you will be a bad dog. Oh, Lucille, you're not a bad dog yet. But you will be. This is it. This is your last chance. Better chew the shoe this time. Ready? We share the chair. We chew the shoe. Good. These are the things we like to do. Share the chair. Wait a minute, Lucille. I think I heard a thud. Lucille? Lucille, baby. Lucille, turn around. Lucille! Chew the shoe again. Okay, this is it. You're a bad dog. Bad dog. I hate to punish her. But how is she ever going to learn? You have to discipline your pets. all the variety of shoes out there, Lucille. Perhaps an alternative shoe. How about it? I mean, for the sake of the rest of the show, have we got a volunteer? Make a little dog happy? Jonathan, I can see that you're just so here. Come on. It's okay, it's only one shoe, you'll have another one. Lucille, Jonathan just volunteered his shoe. If you chew Jonathan's shoe, then you will redeem yourself as a good dog. It's up to you. It's a white knight. Come on, Jonathan. For those of us that know you. Have a seat. It's not a seat. Remember, you're sitting on my coat chest. Now, this shoe has to pass the smell test, so just please hold it where she can reach it with her nose. How about it, Lucille? Check the instep. Right, just hold it right here. We'll get through this really quickly. Toe inward. We share the chair. We chew the shoe. Good. Jump, 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 jump. These are the things we like to do. Share the chair. Chew the shoe. Jump, 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 jump. We like this crazy song for you. We share the chair. We chew the shoe. Jump, 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 and sing this crazy song for you. Now just go show Jonathan his seat. Lucille, you are a good dog. Oh boy, a letter from Zephyr Morningstar, always handmade, always arty. It's a Christmas decoration, how nice. No, it's more than that, it's a birth announcement. It's a girl, 8 pounds, 4 ounces, Abigail. Hey. Zephyr has gotten on a new tack. Her first child was named Sky Blue. Her second, Forrest. Third, Brooke. All of a sudden, Abigail. Looks like Zephyr is finally out of the woods. I first knew Zephyr in high school. Back then, she was Debbie LaFlatte. She earned her claim to fame in 1966 by being the first female student kicked out of Barnard for publicly admitting that she was living with a man out of wedlock. In 1966, this made nationwide attention, and that's the truth. She was written up in Time magazine. She was even interviewed on Johnny Carson. And that's the truth. That was Debbie LaFlatte's last public splash. After that, she got into communal living. She became Zephyr Morningstar. I remember visiting Zephyr's apartment back in New York City in the late 60s. I was greeted at the door by a naked black man. Apparently, he thought that clothing was too restrictive. And back in the 60s, if you decided you didn't like clothes, then you didn't wear clothes. Where I was supposed to focus my eyes was my problem. I remember trying to act very nonchalant, cool. I knew if I freaked out and said, "Hey, you're naked, put some clothes on!" that would only prove how uptight, unliberated, and superficial I was. I was none of those things. I was together. I knew what was happening. I knew what was coming down. I knew the best thing to do would be to stare at the Doors poster over his left shoulder. Nice poster. Is Debbie, Zephyr, around? He asked, "Don't you dare look me in the eye." And then he lifted my chin and slowly drew it across the entire length of his body until finally I could safely rest eye contact on his face. Apparently, my facial expression betrayed something other than nonchalance. Because he laughed out loud and said, "Yeah, she's here. Come on in." I walked into the kitchen, past a cockroach wading through a jar of Deaf Smith peanut butter, over a white fur rug matted down with something. And through an open doorway in a darkened room with the shades pulled down, I could see Debbie LaFlop's cross-legged silhouette, illuminated by a single candlelight. I stood there for a minute. I wasn't acknowledged, although she seemed to be staring directly at me. So finally, I just found a place to sit on the white fur rug. Thumbed through the pages of Mother Earth News for about 20 minutes until Zephyr's meditation over. She invited me to come into her chamber where she shared with me her insights. And I remember thinking that she really had them and that I was so naive by comparison. That was the 60s. The contract. This story happened before granny skirts and hiking boots were worn together. Before India imports such as the Maharishi came to town. This story is about my double-fisted emergence into the 60s. I was raised Catholic. That gave me the edge over my Protestant friends because God liked Catholics better. There were a few problems, as Catholicism was my mother's French-Irish heritage, and my Yankee father was a Protestant, unrequired by God's law to attend Sunday Mass. But Ma was determined to raise my brother and I as conscience-ridden Catholic children. And the way she worked it out with my father not going to church was this. It's the family responsibility for the three of us to pray harder. So that when the time comes, your father can swoop into heaven on the Catholic coattails. Well, that seemed pretty reasonable to my brother and I. I mean, after all, praying was easy. We could do a few extra Our Fathers, Hail Marys, acts of contrition, no problem. We could be obedient enough to keep our Catholic credit in good standing. And when the time came to vouch for Dad, God would smile down on his obedient children, thumbs up his approval of Dad's entry, and eternal bliss guaranteed for Dad. That's okay, Dad. We only did it because we love you. That was my Catholic mindset. Let's make a deal. All through my childhood, this worked out pretty well. God and I maintained a mutual respect for each other's bargaining power. Till puberty hit. And then being good wasn't quite as clear-cut as it used to be. No longer were good and bad, black and white. I was presented with those sticky shades of gray. Sexual confusion. Still, I figured that God and I could work it out. After all, he knows me, I trust him, and above all, a deal's a deal. Willie Sleeper was my first, and I was his. Two virgins groping for sensation. With all the only awkwardness and tenderness possible in teenage romance. Willie was tall in that gangly, uncoordinated way. His height got him on the basketball team. But his lack of coordination made him one of those players for whom they pad the gymnasium walls with bats. Willie would run down the length of the court to jump up, slam dunk the ball, and slam right into the opposite wall, cartoon style, and then melt to the floor like young baby. Willie, no, don't! Willie would fly through the air and land in the unsuspecting laps of the cheerleaders. Willie, no, don't! Willie would skid across the boards, burning the few exposed patches of skin between the protective knee pads, elbow pads, wrist bands. Willie was a danger to himself. But Willie always got up. Bruised, burned, bumped, bleeding. Willie played ball. Slammer! His name was quite quickly changed from sleeper to slammer, for obvious reasons. And because Willie's heart was in the game, and because we were from a very small school, Willie made him first string. I was co-captain of the varsity cheerleading squad, because I like to run and jump. So, Willie and I put in a lot of miles together on the bus trips to and from the games. On the way to the games, the cheerleaders were relegated to the back of the bus, because the players complained that the fumes interfered with their concentration. The coach was a fair man. He believed in incentive. So he set the rule that if we won, then the cheerleaders could sit wherever they wanted on the way back. That allowed us to make out the basketball players. If we lost, the cheerleaders were up front, separated by 2 rows of empty seats from the basketball players who deserved to inhale all the fumes available. On the way back from our victories, yay Willie, yay Slammer, yay, yay, Willie, Slammer! Willie and I sat together and we made out. We started going steady. Not that I wanted to, I didn't. But it was the only socially acceptable way that I could maintain my reputation as a good girl and still experiment with sex. And Willie protected my reputation. He never told any of his friends. Not that his friends would have believed him if he had. Because I was a scrub student council type who looked and acted sexually naive, and Willie was a klutz. At pajama parties, when we girls would get together to smoke cigarettes and discuss all the gross disfigurements depicted in the National Enquirer. I remember doing a very poor job of trying to inhale a cigarette, at the same time munching on a marshmallow Rice Krispie square. I brought up the topic of crossed bones. I'd read about it in the National Enquirer. They even had a photograph of an X-ray to prove it was true. Cross pelvic bone. Inhibiting any entry into that most mysterious cavern that is our claim to womanhood. Any one of us in this room could have them. You don't know, because you can't see them. They're on the inside, blocking that private place. Even I projected a future of loneliness for myself, where no man could enter. No man wants a woman like that, from which no baby could exit. No baby wants a mother like that. What if I had crossed bones? A shower of marshmallow rice spewed over the carpet. And 9 cheerleaders broke up in laughter, and one comforted me, saying, "Jam, how can you be so dumb?" I got the nickname Jam for my popularity at pajama parties. I was invited to everybody's pajama parties. When the subject of sex came up, I always acted naive. People figured that me and Willie, oh no. You see, neither Willie nor I projected our sexuality. We just weren't cool. We were popular, like high school mascots are popular. People liked having us around, but nobody took us seriously. Willie's friends would rather, hey, Slammer, have you jammed it yet? They figured. Slammer was getting no action at all, because Slammer and Jam were just too funny for any of that stuff. Still, Willie and I had known each other through history. We played tag and baseball together when Willie got old enough to get his license, and we borrowed his parents' car and go parking up by the sand pits of Page Road. I remember sinking lower and lower into the front seat, the radio turned on, getting our feet and legs all tangled up in the steering wheel, my obligatory protest of, Willie, no, don't. But my weak little Willie, no, don't. Not nearly as powerful as this mind buzz that filled our thoughts and bodies and actions with a tension that wanted explosive release, but no, I would feel too guilty about going to confession on Saturdays. Willie and I would go to the outdoor movies. I never thoroughly understood what I was doing to Willie. In retrospect, it's amazing to remember all the things, the many and varied things we figured out to do without really going all the way. Just hours and hours of groping for sensation. Nobody takes that much time. You might think it was romantic, but no, it was not romantic. Willie could drink a whole quart of orange crushed soda and produce such magnificent burps that he won all the burping contests at Ma Bradley's corner store where the guys hung out. Slammer, he's our man. If he can't do it, nobody could burp like Slammer. I tried to convince him not to burp so loudly. Willie, no, don't. But Willie thought it was funny. Still, Willie was the first to tell me I was beautiful. I was young, awkward, modest about my body, and in the back seat of Willie's parents' car, Willie touched me with hesitation, smoothed my shivering skin, and Willie told me I was beautiful. He was so good, just as scared as I was, because I was Willie's first. Then that mind buzz took over that filled our thoughts and bodies and actions with a tension that demanded explosive release, and we did it. We went all the way. At least I think we did. It wasn't wonderful. Oh, now I really dreaded confessions. Oh, how do you tell a priest the urges he knows nothing about? But the priest was just the middleman. It was God I had to convince. I had to convince God that I was trying not to have sex. But because of human weakness, which I know he thoroughly understood, after all, he created it. I sometimes slipped up. I do all the acts of contrition he wanted, several Our Fathers, 5 times a day, ring around the rosary beads, all morning long. Little forgiveness, huh, God? For old time's sake? I became a skiing fanatic because it was a physical thrill that I didn't have to feel guilty about. A weekend pattern developed. On Friday nights, Willie and I would go out. So we tried not to. As parents camp with a bottle of vodka and a quart of Mountain Dew. So we tried not to. And it was upstairs bedroom when his parents were out in the evening, and I just brought along my shorty pajamas in case I felt tired. So we tried not to. We up and did it on Friday nights. On Saturday mornings, I go to confession. Recite reams of prayers, trying to even the score with God, worrying that I was losing those extra bonus points necessary to hoist Dad up into a good... Worried that I would probably be sent in the other direction to toast like a Pop-Tart in hell. We both knew that we needed more time apart in order to grow up. But we couldn't seem to separate until graduation. when I was headed for college and Willie was going to tech school. It was prom night. We were both feeling typically sentimental and melodramatic. And while walking around the gymnasium floor in a clutch, Willie and I promised each other that we will meet again on June 18th, the day we graduated from high school. At 2 p.m. in 1969, 4 years later, we will meet to tell each other what we are going to do with our lives. We made up a couple contracts. Both signed each, and I stuffed mine in my hope chest. Now, we wrote letters. Willie said that he was kind of sick of tech school. He didn't think that he was getting anything out of it. I told him that college was fine and encouraged him to hold tight with tech because Vietnam was claiming all the dropouts. But Willie's brother was a Marine over there, and he decided it was time for him to become a man. We rode through Willie's boot camp in my second semester of college. Willie went into the infantry, and we kept writing. Now, Willie was tall in that gangly, uncoordinated way. Willie was good-hearted. He'd volunteer to do something stupid. I just knew it. He'd try to be too brave. He wouldn't think of himself first. He wouldn't watch where he was walking. He'd step on a landmine. I just knew it. I tried to make a deal with God. God, just get him back safe, okay? Well, he can't do it by himself. We kept writing. Willie told me he'd changed. He'd seen a lot. He'd grown up. Become a man. And when he got back, I could teach him how to ski. Well, I don't know what I was doing at June 18th in 1969 at 2 p.m., but I was not standing by the pinball machines at the L&L bowling alley where we were going to meet. And neither was Willie. Because on a sunny morning in May in 1967, when Country Joe and the Fish were singing on the radio, it's 1, 2, 3, what are we fighting for? Willie's flag-covered coffin was lowered into the ground. Willie. No. Don't. Several people asked me if I wanted to ride home from Willie's funeral. I refused them. I had to walk. It was this mind buzz that filled my thoughts and body and actions with a tension that wanted explosive release, but I couldn't cry. I couldn't feel. I was alone, groping for sensation. See, Willie was my first death. So I walked. I walked. What are you doing here? Well, Patricia Jane, I thought I got an invitation. Well, you did, Aunt Pauline, but I meant for you to be in the audience. Patricia Jane, the invitation indicated that this was about fantasy and a story-sharing experience. Well, I came to tell my story. But, Aunt Pauline, what I meant was that I'd be telling the stories and you'd be part of it. Patricia Jane, I did not come all the way from Sweet Burden, Texas, not to do what I came here to do. Aunt Patricia Jane. All right, Aunt Pauline, go ahead then. Thank you. I thought this was supposed to be a support group. have never met. We are gathered here this evening to share with one another what we all have in common. Now, this is the first time that I have gathered my courage to stand up and publicly admit that I, too, like all of you, have a problem. Where to begin? Where to begin? Oh, where? I know what you're thinking. That lady be standing up there in her best dress with her rubber gloves on. She must be crackers. Well, if that's what's running through your head, then I would ask you to just please listen. And after you digest the content of my story, then perhaps you will understand. Because for me, as I'm sure for many of you, some things never change. For me, it began at the beginning. I was just a little baby, exploring the world around me, gathering up the dirt and grease from the ground, spreading it all over my face and into my mouth, just experiencing the textures of the earth all over my body. Well, even then, I was just reaching out to taste, touch, and test what was real. But these early explorations were discouraged by jaded adults. Pauline, my mother would tell me, now don't you touch that, don't pick that up, don't handle that. That's dirty. I didn't want to be a dirty little girl. So I suppressed that desire to experience the world around me. And I turned my back on dirt and grease and grime and the products of the earth and eventually the whole natural environment. And the type of people it bred. For fear of germs and contagious infection. Back then, I was just worried about ringworm and chicken pox. Now, Lordy, doesn't it get worse? The older I got, the more aware of all the terrible communicable diseases. I became a compulsive about cleanliness, and who can blame me? I bought myself a mobile home. Wall-to-wall, ceiling-to-floor sanitized plastic. Which I sprayed daily with Lysol disinfectant. Just in case. I stayed inside my mobile home. You know, the fact that I chose to buy a mobile home has always puzzled me, as I was not about to go anywhere, much less let it travel around the neighborhood. But that is beside the point. So on with my story. Every day, I pulled on my rubber gloves and I began to scour and scrub the inside, underside, backside, top side of every household surface and appliance thereupon. Why, it got so that Mr. Clean could see his reflection in the toaster tray designed to catch the crumbs. In fact, he did. Well, the first time it happened, he rose out of my sink like a big ball genie with a bright gold ring till he stood about 10 feet tall, bumping his shiny little noggin on my ceiling fixture. I looked to see if he had left a sweat stain. He had not, as he was a figment of my imagination. Now, I knew this to be true, and yet there he was, standing in front of me with his arms folded, critically inspecting my kitchen for any particle of dirt or hidden stain. I did more rubbing, more scrubbing, more scouring, but I could not satisfy him. It got so I would not leave my mobile home, but to restock on detergent paraphernalia. Yet the job was never done. Then the visitations began to diversify. I was scrubbing out my toilet when Mr. Tidy Bowl popped up, punching his accusatory little cane into my left nostril. I poured Vanish down down the bowl. He would not go away. I turned on the bathtub faucet. Out popped Mr. Bubble. Before I had a chance to say, "Go away, you are not rail," he was pushed aside by Mr. Muscle. Saved him from being trampled over by 20 mule team borax. Well, the galloping just got worse, and before I knew it, there in front of me, in my very own bathroom, was the White Knight. On his big steed. I heard the God office racket behind me. I turned around and there was Janitor in his room. Apparently, he could not get out. And joining him in some sort of free-verse duet was a great big arm and hammer coming down on my hamper top. It was a percussionist nightmare. Pound, pound, bang, bang. I had to flee my own bathroom. I tried to ignore these visitations. I could not. I tried to think of them as creative outbursts. The product of an inventive imagination. Like many of you, when I first became aware of the symptoms, I did not recognize it as a problem. I thought perhaps I had some sort of special gift. An advantage. A talent. Can you imagine that? Thinking of this dreadful disorder which plagues our lives as a talent? Well, of course. You can imagine it. That's why we're all here, isn't it? I'm sure that many of you, just like me, first misdiagnosed your symptoms as something as relatively harmless as artistic creativity. Which in its own way can be just as perverse. All of this uninvited company was just driving me bananas. I was at the end of my rope. My nerves were frayed. When my salvation marched right up to my front door and knocked to come inside. I opened the door and there she was, pristine in her personal hygiene, smelling like morning fresh summer breeze breath deodorant, and toting a great big suitcase. I reached out to touch her. She was real. I had not conjured her up. Well, she must have wondered what I was doing. So I invited her to come inside. She opened her suitcase and she displayed to me, through a whole mess of tape recordings and charts and photographs, the vehicle to success. The vehicle on which I could climb to control my life my way. Which was actually their way. But I did not realize this at the time. So on with my story. She introduced herself as the neighborhood representative of My Way Home Care No High Products and assured me that from now on I could control my life through my way. Now I believe that nobody smelling as clean as that representative did could be wrong. So I bought into that program, and with My Way products, I became squeaky clean, from between my toes to between my ears. There was not one part of my body which did not smell either like peppermint, spearmint, or cinnamon. I sprayed that My Way smile from one cinnamon-scented ear to the other on account of cinnamon-coated Q-tips. Have you ever tried those? Now, those are a dandy little bugs for the ear. That is the one product that I continue to buy to this day from My Way Home Care No Problem. But that is beside the point. So on with my story. I attended national rallies where I screamed for more and more. I directed my dreams. I controlled my visions. Instead of seeing Mr. Clean rise out of my kitchen sink, I saw myself as a three-diamond winner, sitting pretty, right on top of a pyramid of little tiny salespeople all balanced on each other's shoulders just to keep me propped up there on the pinnacle of success. They call it positive imagery. I took the picture of that pyramid principle directly off those My Way charts. That picture became my vehicle. And because I was so prone to hallucination in the first place, I quite quickly became successful. The more products I bought and sold, the more points I accumulated, the higher I climbed on that pyramid, the more I began to question. Well, just what it was I was reaching for. Now, I don't know why I began to question. I am usually not a questioning individual. It's just that even their way, which was my way, my new way, not my old way, still seemed to be lacking in reality. All of those thousands of adults jumping on their separate vehicles of success to arrive at a common destination where they could all scream for more and more and more. Why, they all seem to have their minds layered over with a substance akin to pan. Yes, that aerosol spray that you squirt on a baking pan to create a non-stick surface. Sort of a cerebral Teflon. Once again, I plummeted to the depths of disillusionment. Convenient cleaning products had lost their meaning for me. And with that meaning went my tentative grip on reality. I retreated back to the desires of my infancy, back to my original attraction to dirt and grime and the products of the earth. I actually caught myself crossing Pig Turd Alley to investigate a neighbor's mulch pile. I looked down at that dirty organic matter. I picked some up and fondled it. And I thought to myself, this is real. It has a right to be here. And it makes a whole lot more sense than my life. That day, I pulled off my rubber gloves. I could not begin to clean or scrub. I was going into a withdrawal. I sat cross-legged on my living room floor for 2 hours, watching the dust sift down from the ceiling and settle on my coffee table. No lemon pledge, no end dust came to intervene. For the rest of the afternoon, I stared at a corner, watching a cobweb form. I watched the cob work to make it happen. And that's when I knew the things had gone too far. With trembling hand, I reached out to my telephone receiver. I picked it up and I dialed Fantasy, Anonymous, and asked for help. And someone was there for me. Someone was there that told me that all of you here at Fantasy Anonymous would be here tonight because you have been there, and that's why you are here, and that's why I'm here too, because I too, like all of you, have been there. Now, through your help, I recognize that for the past 42 years I have been fantasy dependent. I admit it. I testify to my addiction. I am addicted to fantasy. But I know that if we all just reach out to one another, together, we can lick this thing. Yes, we can lick this thing. We can rid our lives of fantasy once and for all. myself away and get lost in somebody else for a while. To surrender to that feeling. To fall, to literally fall in love. A friend of mine said, you fall in love with someone not because of their fine qualities, but because something about them appeals to your imagination. I think perhaps it's that simple. Trouble is, what are the formative years of the heart's imagination? Certainly not as late as your mid-20s when you might be doing some serious looking. Consult any psychology book and you find that nothing much happens beyond age 5. I know that my heart's imagination developed and peaked in the 50s. I was about 5 years old, astride a plastic pony, staring wide-eyed at the cowboy shows on television, and that's where I fell in love. I told her to Hopalong Cassidy lunchbox at kindergarten. Hopalong did little for me. He and Jean Autry, and a jolly fat. Debbie Hayes, too old. Bess Parker was kind of cute. But he wore the wrong kind of hat. Ah, the Lone Ranger and his masked mystique. That was appealing. A little too tight with Tonto. For me, and many little girls in the 50s, it was Roy Rogers. Yes, Roy Rogers, he did it for us. His dark, squinty eyes all gathered up with laugh lines, that neat little neckerchief he always wore. Denim jeans hugged his narrow hips. His body was so thin and agile that he could easily hop onto the saddle, kick trigger in the side, and in one smooth motion, horse and cowboy were united as a single, well-intentioned beast that galloped across my TV screen as I rocked on my plastic pony and dreamed that one day I would straddle the saddle right behind Roy, wrap my arms around his waist, and become part of that bounding physical force for truth, justice, and the American adventure. Because Roy appealed to my imagination. And it is this initial appeal that I believe, for me, was the beginning of the macho attraction. I'm sorry. An attraction I have yet to thoroughly outgrow. You know how when you're young and going through adolescent turmoil, confused about matters of love and sex, you want to talk to someone who has experience. Don't want to go to your parents because they're too close. I was fortunate enough to have an understanding grandfather in whom I could confide. And when I took my hesitant questions to him, his advice to me was, never trust a man with too much air blowing between his legs. Okay, Gramps. Thanks. I didn't dare ask him what that meant. I assumed it meant that short men were more trustworthy than tall ones. So, for the better part of 10 years, I tried to fall in love with a short man. I remember the end of that lengthy fiasco. Standing at the Atlanta airport, seeing the approach of one of my short men way in the distance. Long, long corridor. I spotted his nervous gait, and as he hurried toward me, I tried to extract from my heart that feeling of welcome, that anxiousness of embrace, that desire to hold someone whom you haven't seen for a long, long time, but my heart was totally bored with the effort. Just sat there, unamused, leaving my head to assess the situation. And all my head could come up with was, aren't there rules of linear perspective that say he's supposed to get taller? That's when I had to admit that I was not in love with this man. But I had totally misinterpreted my grandfather's advice. He was not referring to the length of the inseam. No. He was referring to the stance. This legs apart straddle. Feet planted firmly on the ground, pelvis tilted slightly forward, thumbs in the pockets in lieu of hands on the holsters. This stubborn, unmoving, cowboy, macho stance was what my grandfather meant for me to watch out. And I met a man who turned this stance into an art form. He was leaning on the gas pump, sucking on a toothpick. John's red chainsaw cap, down vest, flannel shirt, jeans, work boots. You've seen him. I pulled in to have my car fueled up. He looked over in my direction, but he didn't make a move to come over. So I rolled down my window and asked, "Excuse me, is this place self-service?" "Only if you're in a hurry." Then he slowly moseyed over to my car and stood in front of my open window. He must have been staring over the roof of my car, which left me to stare at his personalized belt buckle. It said, "Brand." It didn't say anything else. I wasn't sure if I was waiting for it to speak or exactly what I was waiting for. So finally I craned my neck out the window and looked up at it. He looked down at me. He looked at me. That was all. But oh no, that look. Without verbalizing it, the look said, "I got something good." "You interested in finding out what?" "No, nothing good, please." I ducked back inside the safety of my vehicle. I could be overwhelmed. I generally seek out the bland and mundane. Those things I can handle. Nothing good today, no. He continued to stand there until finally, once again, I craned my neck out the window. "Excuse me, but what's up?" Well, I hadn't thought of all the implications of that question. He slowly bent down to meet my face with his, looked at me through clear, dark, smiling eyes, and said, "You've been staring at it for 10 minutes. What's your problem?" "What's my problem?" He set me up. I knew it. Do you know what style appealed to me? Yes, it did. This guy was a performer. Sure, he played the macho role, but he played the part so well. Of course, I wasn't going to let him know that. "Could I have some gas, please?" "Yes, ma'am. How much you want?" "Fill it up?" "I can do that." He flicked the toothpick over the roof of my car and headed for my gas tank. Now, I tried not to follow him with my eyes, but I couldn't seem to help myself, and then there it was! In his back pocket! Roy Rogers' handkerchief! He caught me looking at him. I wanted this man. And that was the answer to his question, "What's your problem?" I wanted him, and he knew it. And that was my problem. "Want me to check your oils, man?" "Please." He disappeared behind the hood of my car. I could feel it beginning to happen. That familiar urge to grab Roy Rogers around the waist, become part of that bounding physical force for truth, justice. "You're down a quart." Ma'am. I was staring at his belt buckle again, watching him wipe oil the sides of his jeans. Now, I usually like to call a woman man, but until I know another name, that is, if you have another name. Yes. Good. So do I. Ramsey Dodge. Pleased to meet you, Miss. Pat. Pleased to meet you. Pat. Tapped the side of my car and once again disappeared behind my hood. And that was my introduction to Ramsey Dodge. Ram Dodge. Can you imagine his mother's lack of foresight naming her baby boy Ramsey? She might have been able to predict that the nickname would be shortened to the name would be shortened to the nickname Ram, and then what she created? Ram Dodge. It wasn't his fault that as he grew older and began to relate to women, that his style suited his name. His name suited his style. Ramsey approached women like a football play, fast, direct, and hard, and was so adept at sidestepping the consequences that he could easily navigate a very agile dodge. And so he came into my life, blameless from the start. I should have known better. I was 31 years old. He was 21. I had years of experience on my side. He just had the experience. But age offers no protection. There would come a time when I would fall. I wouldn't be able to help myself. And as I eased myself down into that posture of surrender, bam! I slammed down the hood of my car. So, Pat, I know what to call you, but I don't exactly know where to call you. I had my pride to consider. I mean, my older woman image was at stake here. I had just renewed my subscription to Modern Maturity magazine. I had confirmed the appointment to have the blue tint put in the hair. But I thought maybe in this case, I could lower my standards a little. And, see, it had been a drought. I was ready for a little rainfall, a little thunderstorm action, small hurricane, minor deluge. Yeah, let the young man call. Bring on the monsoon. I gave him my number. He didn't call. A month went by. He called on a Sunday afternoon. Want to go for a drive? A drive? A Sunday afternoon drive? Are you bringing your family? Can I bring mine? Will we all go out for ice cream? Of course, they didn't ask any of these questions. I immediately said, sure. An hour later, Ramsey rolled into my driveway in a highly polished, shiny sheen, black high-rider pickup truck, accentuated all around with thin stripes of red, gold, orange, chrome rollover bars behind the cab, body of the truck jacked up about 1.5 feet off the oversized tires. License plate says, Ram. And hanging from the rear view mirror, a purple satin garter with black lace trims. Nice touch. And yes, the truck was a Dodge Ram. Oh, Roy, is that your horse? As Ramsey swung down from the cab and patted the metal steed's rumbling backside, I witnessed the meaning of Ram tough. It embarrassed me. I wish my roommates weren't here to see this. He looked so young. I felt so awkward. But the real source of my embarrassment was, I liked it. There I was, face to face with my 50s vision of Roy Rogers, ready to take me away on an even bigger trigger than I had ever imagined. There was no way. No way I was going to miss my Sunday afternoon drive. Ramsey boosted me up into the passenger seat, just like Roy would help Dale into the saddle. The interior of the beast was all carpeted and clean. Music blared from 4 different speakers, and there I was, riding high, looking down on everybody. We bucked and bumped down old logging roads, did wheelies and spin-outs in empty lots, came out of the woods, passed cars on the highway, Bob Seger's screaming on the tape deck, Sweet 16 turned 31. We just cruised for the rest of the afternoon. 3 hours later, Ramsey returned me to my driveway, said, I'll call you, and rode away. Yes. Into the sunset. No monsoon. No deluge. Not even a rain. I waved goodbye with the same empty feeling I had at the end of the Roy Rogers television show. Happy trails to you till we again. Well, I figured we wouldn't meet again. I mean, after all, I knew that I was not Ram Dodge's type. Nor was he mine, for that matter. I mean, I've never been particularly attracted to vanity plates, especially the sort that advertise such blatant machismo as Ram. And I've never had occasion to wear a purple satin garter with black lace trim. Although I am currently considering such occasions. It had been a pleasant little romp into my childhood. I was prepared to leave it at that and return to my more mature standard of conduct when he called. The next Saturday at noon. Want to go to lunch? Now, from the beginning and throughout the time I knew him, Ramsey always called at the last minute. Throughout the time I knew him, I was ready to do whatever, whenever, however. Yes, let's go to lunch. We went to lunch. After lunch, we went to my apartment. Get cozy on the couch. Turned on the HBO, watched a couple of westerns, opened a bottle of wine. Ram smelled good. Right here, under the hairline. The scent of clean skin. Sun-dried cotton. Wet earth. Wood smoke. Maybe just a touch of gasoline. Just a shade of hoss. I wanted to curl up right there and just inhale the scent of him. I wanted more of that. So we get a little cozier on the couch and then kind of slipped off onto the floor, and the afternoon turned into the evening into the night into the next morning. We went out for breakfast, came back for more romping on the couch, and around 12 o'clock noontime on Sunday, we decided to call an end to the date. A 24-hour luncheon engagement. I was satisfied. Monsoon season had begun. The next 3 weeks, we were together virtually all the time we weren't working. Driving around in the Dodge Ram, eating, sleeping, talking, exchanging stories. My midlife and childhood fantasies simultaneously realized. You've heard of simultaneous? I told myself that I had no expectations for this to last. This was simply a fling of hedonistic romping that filled the present. The present was all that I had, all that I expected, I told myself. But whenever I returned to my apartment, the first thing I looked for was a message from Ramsey. And although he called regularly, every time he called I was surprised. I was nervous. On Valentine's Day, he came to my door in a fresh painter's cap, denim jacket, t-shirt that said Le Cava, snappy lobster. Wicked pisser. He handed me a dozen roses and asked, "You got anything to drink?" No kiss, no mention of Valentine's Day. He just let roses and faded denim speak for themselves. And oh, I liked what they said. I knew that I should not be sucked in by this blatant macho image, but I did not want to evaluate it. I didn't want to analyze it. I didn't want it to stop. Because it was wicked, pisser good. Then I made a mistake. I suggested we go to an isolated cabin by a lake where I'd been going since I was 5 years old. This was in the wintertime. Ramsey thought it was a good idea. We packed a truck full of snowshoes, cross-country skis, food, sleeping bags. Arrived at a frozen lake about midnight. The sky all dark and clear, lit with stars, big and open like a western sky. We unpacked the truck, strapped on snowshoes. Ramsey strapped a knife and a leather holster to his thigh. Said it was in case of bears. And I felt protected from bears. We slogged across the lake around midnight with the moon following behind us, spilling glittery highlights all over the blue, shadowy snow, and damn, it was romantic. Never do anything romantic with a guy like Ram. So long as you travel in the fast lane, you're relatively safe. But once you stop, watch him stop, you're just too apt to want to surrender to him. And you know it can't be done. Ram pushed open the cabin door, sniffed. I smell an animal. We got a fire going in the old black stove. I kicked off my shoes, warmed my feet in the oven. We made cocoa. Ram started telling me stories. Childhood stories. Stories about growing up in a lot of different places. Stories about mom. Stories about high school. Stories about college. He went to college a couple of years. Work story. And he sang songs to me. But without realizing it, he began to tell me about himself. He had dropped the act. The next morning, when you could see your breath in the cabin, Ram got up first, giving me the luxury of waking to the smells of wood smoke and coffee perking, moving from the warmth of the bed to the warmth of the fire. And as he poured hot coffee from a tin pot into the mug I held, I inhaled the steam and envisioned myself trailside with Roy. That day, we chopped wood, exchanged more stories, cooked up a lot of food, just like Roy and Dale. We even melted snow in a great big pot and washed each other's hair. I don't know if Roy and Dale ever did that. I suppose they did. But by the end of that weekend, I had surrendered. I could no longer pretend to be in control. My fantasy had gotten the better of me. I wanted to spend the rest of my life riding shotgun in the Dodge Ram beside Ram Dodge. I wanted it to be just like Roy and Dale. Ram sensed it, like he first smelled the animal when he pushed open the cabin door. It wasn't long before he was gone. No explanation, no warning, no happy dreams to you. He left. His absence was the message, and I could make whatever explanation I wanted out of that. Now, it wasn't as if he promised me anything. Just because he'd been coming around for 3 months didn't mean he'd be coming around for 3 more. I got a dog, Lucille. Gave her Ramsey's old sleeping bag to use as a bed and encouraged her to puke on it. Which she obligingly did. I used the towel left behind in the morning. A friend of mine tried to cheer me up. Look at it this way, Pat. You may have lost the lover, but I missed his songs, I missed his stories. I missed seeing his work boots parked by the soap roller where he always used to put them. I missed him. Read a lot of novels to get my mind on other things. 27 novels, and 6 months later, I get a communication from North Dakota. Somebody had told me he'd gone out west. Picture of a rather contented-looking penguin being tickled under the chin by a large index finger. Inside, the card read, "Sometimes I still think of you. Hope your coochie still can coo. Ram." Back in the act. There was no return address. I suppose that should be the end of the Ram Dodge story. But you know, I just can't really get the covers to close on this one. Because childhood fantasies die hard. Either that or they never die. And way back, those layers and layers of your... No, the past is too precious to me. But way back, but I cannot deny its richness. It's way back after those layers and layers of years, there's this little 5-year-old self. This little 5-year-old self staring wide-eyed at the cowboy shows on television. She's telling me now, wait, he'll come back. Wait.
Happy trails to you until we meet again. Happy trails to you.
Wait! Neva. At 81 years old, Neva still waits tables down at the Moose Hall. Some of you have been waiting for me to mention the Moose. She serves out the suppers, collects up the dishes, and still can look over her shoulder to the guys. Hey, darling, any of you guys want to go skinny dipping with me after this shindig's over? You can meet me down by the pond out back. He doesn't like groups of old people. Those goddamn golden age groups. Who do they think they are anyway? Senior citizens? The elderly? Why don't they just say what they are? Old farts. A bunch of old farts sitting around waiting to get old. Neva doesn't feel like an old person. And she's pretty short-tempered with people who treat her like one. I met her shopping in Porches one day. She was bent over the perfume counter, trying out all the samples. When this young sales clerk, 1/4 her age, approached her with a patronizing attitude and used the plural form, as they often do, and she asked, "Have we found anything we like today, dear?" Well, Neva lifted her white head, looked the girl in the eye, and said, "Oh, shut up!" And then went back to spraying cologne on her wrists. It's the category of being an old person in other people's eyes that Neva objects to. And that's one of the reasons she likes kids. Kids don't look at you that way. They're too full of themselves to look at you any which way at all. Kids, everybody should be like kids and just mind their business. Last year, Neva's second husband, Pip, died. So I'll live alone. It seemed like people started treating her differently, checking in on her all the time and bringing her banana bread. For Christ's sake! I just about shut the door. Somebody else comes in asking me how I am, expecting to hear I got a backache or some problem. Wouldn't that give them some fine satisfaction if I just sat there all day telling them my problems? I don't want to tell them my problems any more than I want to hear theirs. And if they think I can't bake banana bread, I've been baking banana bread for 70 years. I think I know how to bake banana bread. Neva was not the most appreciative recipient of neighborly gestures. They want to go looking in on somebody, they can go look in on those old farts that I've been bringing banana bread to for the last 40 years. When the kids started tampering with Neva's mailbox, she couldn't understand it. Kids she thought she knew. Now, why would they go do a thing like that now? I know, I get grouchy, but I don't ever get grouchy with those kids. She started asking around. Nobody had seen anybody fooling around in her yard. But it had to be kids. I mean, teenagers wouldn't do that. Teenagers just knock the box right off the post, or they'd spray paint graffiti all over it. They wouldn't put grass and dirt inside. She checked with the mailman. Nobody else had made any complaints. He said, well, I'll keep an eye out. If I see any kids around it, I'll be sure to let their parents know. Well, that didn't really relieve Neva's mind, because now she knew she'd been targeted. It was her mailbox they were after. Why would they bother her? When she was an old lady living by herself? Why? Well, she started watching for the mailman so she could get the letters before the kids got there, and who knows what they might start doing. Tear them up and throw them around the yard. Met the mailman one day and he said, Neva, you wouldn't believe what came out of that mailbox yesterday. I opened the thing up and a damn bird flew out, just about hit me in the face. Kids. How they got it in there, I don't. Oh, for God's sakes. It's a bird. Should have thought of that. It's springtime after all, but how did the damn thing get in there? Well, she looked and she could see there's just about a half-inch of space. Didn't really seem like enough for a bird to fit through. But she went to her window and watched, and within 10 minutes, a little wren flew up to the mailbox with a stick in her beak and disappeared inside. For 2 weeks, Neva had been brushing out that bird's daily accomplishments. And for 2 weeks, the bird had come back to begin again. One of life's ironies. Just when you think, well, maybe you are getting old and perhaps it's time to admit it. Mother Nature may come tap you on the shoulder and remind you that she's older still. And there's no... All of its exceptions. It's the exception rule that makes a story. And there are alternatives. Alternatives to waiting to grow older. Alternatives to waiting